Lisa Turner here from Psychacademy. We are a spiritual and consciousness awakening organization specializing in training professional coaches, therapists, and practitioners. And today I want to talk to you about what does it really mean to be spiritual. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So we had, we've had this interesting experience with the pandemic, and I've observed some things, and I've observed some interesting behaviors recently about how people have responded to it, how we've been responding and communicating with each other around issues of the vaccine, the pandemic, whether it's a hoax, and awakening and QAnon and conspiracies and things. Now, this video is not about what's true and what's not true. This video is about what does it really mean to be spiritual. So what I thought I'd do was so I'm just going to backtrack a little bit more again. So, when I first had my personal experiences of, spiritual awakening, I came into spirituality from being an engineer. So from being an engineer, and I was, very, very practical, very, very scientific, very, very analytical. It was all about being very grounded and logical and rational. And then I had a whole bunch of experiences that were, could only be described as a spiritual awakening. And what I did was I went into this trying to understand it. And I really explored the spiritual community, and I was welcomed for just being me. And the whole spiritual community was about love. It was about connection. It was about you doing you the way you want to do it, you being showing up how you want to be. It was very permissive. It was accepting. It was really non-judgmental. It was about being okay to feel your emotions and express them and do them, and learning and growing. And then what I noticed, and I actually noticed it way before the pandemic, I noticed it and it sort of kind of started to creep in. And it was this, like, this is how you're spiritual. You need to do this, and you need to behave like this, and you need to do these things and believe these things and act in these ways and perform these rituals. And you need to always be positive and say your affirmations. And if you show any negative emotion, that's a sign you're not spiritual. And I just started to I noticed that there was this judgment, this condemnation of anyone who somebody might perceive as not being spiritual. And I just noticed that people were behaving in a way that I didn't really think served anyone. And it really looked like it was ego, and you might call it spiritual ego, but it was essentially looked like ego. So, hey, Wendy, nice to see you. I can see lots of people who are Facebook users, and there's a thing you can do to make yourself, like, to check that, like, so you can be seen as you. That'd be lovely. So sort of to allow StreamYard to see you as you. So what I've done is I've put together some thoughts about what does it mean to be spiritual? Because one of the things I've noticed is, I shared some thoughts about something. I just shared what I was doing recently. I just shared what I was doing. And I got death threats and hate mail. I got a lot of, you're a moron, you're a sheep. And there was this love and light, and you're a sheep, love and light, and I hope you burn in hell. I'm going to pray for you while you burn in hell because you're not doing what I believe and do. And so, as somebody who trains practitioners, who works with coaches, I just kind of thought, really? Like, what's going on here? And one of my beautiful students asked me this question. She said, I've seen this, and it's real distraction, and it bothers me. And I'm really aware. It's like, if this is spiritual, I feel like I'm awakening spiritually. And if this is being spiritual, I don't want that. And I thought, yeah. And here's the thing. I don't think that kind of behavior, that what she was witnessing, I don't think it's spiritual. So what I've done is I've put together some thoughts on what I think it means to be spiritual and what I think it means to not be spiritual. So first of all, I'm going to share, what does it mean to not be spiritual? What does that look like? Well, I think it's where you got a whole bunch of rules, you got a bunch of dogma, because that's what a lot of the religion was like. And we all kind of moved out of that into, you can believe whatever you want, experience spirituality in your own way. And then it became, oh no, you always need to do this and believe this and think like this and always be happy and not experience any negative emotions, because if you have any negative emotions, that's a sure sign you're not very spiritual. So there was all that kind of rules and dogma. So I don't think rules and dogma, I don't think they work to help people be spiritual. all they do is create an environment where people don't feel safe to be themselves. And that's certainly not a spiritual environment. So, and where you have no boundaries, or you're not allowed to have boundaries. So that if you say somebody's behaving in a way that's really appalling, and when you say, please don't do that, I'm not okay with that, you say, does it trigger you? Oh, you mustn't be very awakened if you have negative emotions. It's like, you know what? There's a big difference between a negative emotion that tells me somebody is behaving in a way that's unacceptable and inappropriate, to me experiencing trauma from my past. I mean, like, we have an amazing technique to release trauma from the past. And in the book that I'm currently writing about, it's about total trauma recovery. We actually explore the difference between trauma, which is from the past, and negative emotion, which is in the present, which is to guide us. And if you deny a negative emotion that guides you away from what you don't want so that you can experience moving towards what you do want, then like, if you deny that, then you're denying your whole beautiful, perfect, complete feedback system. So toxic positivity is what I call that, where it's not okay to actually just be who you are. Other things, anytime somebody is in a victim mentality, they, whoever they are out to get you unless you do this thing and believe this thing. Like, I believe that as a spiritual being, we're connected to the divine, we are divine. And so surely that means that there's, this is about us. Like, who could be out to get me? Like, maybe there's some things I need to pay attention to and be aware of, but out to get me? I don't know. So here are some other things. Only talking to dead people. Talking to the dead might be useful, might be interesting, but doesn't necessarily equal being highly evolved and spiritual. The people, the guides I communicate with, they've never lived before. They've never incarnated before. They're not dead people, because one of the things about somebody who's lived before, they have encoded in that consciousness the level of consciousness that they achieved in their lifetime, which may be super high, but it's still limited to the human capacity. And somebody, like, and it's not even just that they talk to dead people or that they only talk to dead people. It's how they tell you about it, because they will. And I've had people say, well, I can speak to dead people, that means I'm spiritual. It's like, well, okay. I mean, look, you believe what you want to believe, and that's great. But don't tell me you're spiritual. Show me through your actions, through how you make others feel, how empowered you enable others to be. Predicting the future versus creating it. If we're working on the future is not fixed, that it's unfolding through our thoughts, words, and actions. That's way more empowering than, I'm going to tell you this thing is going to happen on Thursday week. Anytime anything that is disempowering or controlling, that's a sign that it's not very spiritual versus a more highly spiritually awakened person. Anything that is about limiting or restricting, anything that's just information that's already known that can be proven, because if it's really highly awakened, comes from a highly evolved place, then it's really hard to prove. And all we can do is we'll say, well, we'll work on this as some kind of an assumption. It's about truth and lies is not being spiritual. It's about false or right or wrong. So there's this dichotomy versus what's the most optimal. As an engineer, we have this thing like we call it the engineering compromise. The engineering compromise. You can have something that is strong, but it's probably going to be heavy. Or if it's strong and light, it's probably going to be expensive and difficult to manufacture, which makes it expensive, and it's probably going to catch fire. So if you have something that's strong and light and cheap, then it's probably going to do something, it's probably going to be poisonous. And I'm just picking that because I don't know that there is something that's strong, light, and cheap, because it's nearly always like there's this payoff. So there isn't this is right, this is wrong. There's like, this is the most optimal. And there is some level of compromise weaving through this. So thank you everyone for your likes and loves. If you are enjoying this and you like and love this, please let me know, and please tag someone that you think might be interested in this. So being not spiritual is judgmental, limiting, restricting, anything that's about not being true to yourself, anything that's about right, wrong. So there's a dichotomy. Guides that tell you what to do. If somebody guide says, my guide told me. I was working with somebody and they said, my guide told me to move to Ireland, but I hate it. I really want to go back to Spain. It's like, well, just go back to Spain. Like, because I don't believe a highly evolved guide would tell you. They might say, this is optimal, but it's your choice. If you want to achieve this outcome, that's the way to go, most easily go about it. But, you know, if you want to stay in Spain, take longer, that's fine. Do that. Guides never tell you what to do. Anytime you feel real confusion, uncertainty around anyone, anytime that you feel judged and you feel you need to conform to a particular way of being, that's probably a sign that that's not true spirituality. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my thoughts on what does it mean to truly be spiritual, a truly evolved being. And in my next video that I'm going to do another video next Thursday. I'm going to share this model of the evolution of the species, where we are now, how it predicted the pandemic, and what's coming next. So for now, let's just look at what I think it means to be a really highly evolved being. So I think there's something about, I'm just finding some notes here. Okay. So I think being a highly evolved being, I call it being a conscious leader. Because I think what I observe is that a lot of people, they become highly spiritual, highly awakened, and they look at the world and they go, it's terrible. I'm a victim to that terrible world. I need to leave it. Then there are others. And if by definition, what that means is everyone who awakens, is conscious and loving and compassionate, leaves the world, right? So that they're not participating in it. Where does that leave the world? It leaves the world with, by definition, and I don't mean like leaving the world as in dying. I mean, just like withdrawing from participating, from acting, from taking power. If everyone who's awakened does that, by definition, what you're left with is those who are in power, who are by definition not awakened. Hold that thought. So I believe that it would be so much better, and this is just my belief and my observation, and you share what you think, because I'd love to know. Let's make this a conversation. And if you're a coach or a practitioner, you'll know about this. You know, as a coach or a practitioner, you are participating in the world. You are assisting others to evolve and to awaken. And that's so, so powerful. Assisting others to feel better about themselves with your powerful tools. So I think being a conscious leader is you are both conscious and awake, or spiritual, if you want to use that word, and you lead. Because if you have leaders, if you have the idea that you're conscious, but then you leave the world, then all the leaders who are left are by definition not conscious. Or if you have someone who leads, but without consciousness, well, then that's also what you got. So you want to, I think, like, or you have someone who is like the individual who is, they might be they might be conscious, but just not be stepping into their power so they can create the life that they want. So here are some of the qualities that I think really work to be a conscious leader. I think this person has mastered the physical realms, and they have a strong sense of abundance. They are able to take care of details, take care of their physical bodies. They are physically vital, healthy, wealthy, or at least have access to funds or can get access to funds. I believe, and I call this the earth leader. I believe that this person, another quality of a spiritual leader is someone who is kind of magnetic, who is, this has embodied the qualities of this conscious leader. This is somebody who is magnetic. They're exciting. They're fun. They're light-hearted. They're flexible. They're often, they're just joyful to be around. And this is what we call the ecstatic leader, because they're able to experience joy. Maybe it's joyful leader, but I call it ecstatic leader because they actually genuinely experience ecstasy in their day-to-day life. That's actually how they experience their world. Then you might have somebody who is what I call the courageous leader, and they embody the qualities of willpower, of personal discipline, of being true to their word, of having good boundaries, of being powerful and not afraid of using that power in a way that's useful and empowering for others. Then you have somebody, so that's what I call the courageous leader. Then you have somebody who is filled with compassion and unconditional love, But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're a doormat, because ideally you'd have all of them so that you've got those lower, the courageous leader who can, who's that, that boundaried person who can say, no, that doesn't work for me, balanced with the compassion of the compassionate leader. Then you've got somebody who is completely able to speak their truth, and they don't care if others listen or not. They have no, they don't have to. They just say, well, this is what I think. What do you like? What do you? And they're actually genuinely interested, as I just said. I don't know, maybe that was a clue. They share what they're genuinely interested in as a what do you think? I'd love to know what you think. What is the idea of a conscious leader, someone who is truly spiritual? Because you can be spiritual without power. So what is it? Someone who is spiritually powerful or empowered. So then we'd have someone who, so the truthful leader speaks their truth. They listen to others, but they have no, it's not essential for others to believe them or believe their truth. And it's not that they'd call them a liar or anyone. It's just like, oh, okay, that's interesting. That's what you believe. Cool. So I'm loving all the likes, by the way. Thank you. Just noticed some, and thank you for tagging people. That is beautiful. Beautiful. Appreciate that. So truthful leaders, when they talk, people listen. They communicate typically quite eloquently, but that's also about listening and hearing. And they're not interested in facts and right and wrong, but they're also interested in what works, what's optimal. So then we'd have the visionary leader. This is someone who has a crystal clear vision, and they can balance logic with intuition. They don't really have the concept of crime and punishment, but they do understand consequences. They demonstrate some real spiritual powers. Typically, when you've got this visionary leadership quality activated, they can predict the future, or rather, they're aware of what they're creating, and they can move in different directions so that they can move around obstacles or avoid them altogether or uncreate them. They usually really demonstrate real metaphysical powers. So this is the visionary leader. They are a true seer. Oh, I've gone out of focus. There I am. They're a true seer, as in they really see the patterns in the chaos. Then we'd have the conscious leader, and the conscious leader embodies all of those qualities of all the other leaders. So they're fully aligned. And I'd love to know, where do you feel your strength is, and what do you see? Who do you think is the embodiment of one of those? The earth leader, the ecstatic leader, the courageous leader, the compassionate leader, the truthful leader, the visionary leader, and the conscious leader who has all of them. Think about, who do you know, or maybe it's not someone you don't know, but they're in the public eye, who has those qualities. And I would love it if you share what you see in others, because here's the clue: what you see in others is also in you. You might have heard that. So conscious leader embodies all of those qualities, and they're all in balance, and they all work together and support each other. They're often an initiator, they're a spark, and they inspire others to go and do things, and they also take action. And they're also the sort of person that go, this is what I'm going to do. And, I'm going to go here and I'm going to do this work, and this is the work I'm going to do. And it'd be great if you join me, and you want to join me, great. And you don't, great. They've no, you have to do this, and because I'm going to save you. This is the person who goes, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to, this, I think this is going to save me. And you want to come with me? Great. So the conscious leader is most likely to say something like, well, if it works, let's do it. If it works, use it. They also are able to connect with the highly, highly super consciousness. So let me just recap those leadership centers. So we got the earth leader. This is someone who's grounded, practical. They take action. They get things done. They take great care of their physical body. They're most likely to say something like, how can I support you? Or let me help. How can I serve? Who do you know who's an earth leader? They work often with small groups. Ecstatic leader, they're friendly, they're optimistic, they're fun, they're creative, they've got a great sense of humor. And they're most likely to say, should we play? Should we have some fun? Who do you know who's an ecstatic leader? Courageous leader, great sense of integrity. Your word is law. You've got great boundaries, and you're powerful. They make things happen. Very positive self-image. They know who they are. Most likely to say, let's do it, and then does. Compassionate leader, unconditional love, passionate and compassionate with others and with themselves. They're non-judgmental. They can give and receive. Most likely to say, I love you just because you're you. And I'm so happy for you. And they're genuinely happy for other people's success. Who do you know who's a true compassionate leader? Then we have truthful leader. So truthful leader speaks the truth, questions things, asks questions and genuinely listens to the answers. They are most likely to say, take from this what's useful, or can I ask, or this is what I think. What do you think? I'd love to know. This is where I've got to with my thinking. Where have you got to? Often a powerful orator is often a truthful leader. Who do you know who's a powerful orator? Visionary leader, they have discernment. Oh, lots of people saying compassionate leader. Yeah, beautiful. So compassionate leader, logic and intuition. They see patterns in the chaos. They see the vision and they're going for it no matter what. And the vision is always for the highest good of all. And they're most likely to say something like, well, I wonder what will happen if I try this. Let's experiment. Let's play. And then they do. Often followed by, oh, I never thought that would happen. So who do you know who's a visionary leader? Conscious leader sees the unity and connection of all life. They're inspired and inspiring. And they have a beautiful balance of the spiritual, the non-physical, and the physical and the practical. They're often quite magical with their ability to manifest and connect, or be source, embody source. And they're most likely to say something like, if it works, use it. So I'd love to know your thoughts. Has this been useful? Has it been interesting? How are you going to start to embody those qualities? So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be over the next, probably few weeks, I'm going to be doing a series of lives where we're going to be talking about those leadership centers and about how we can activate them. How do you know if yours are active or inactive? So we're going to go into a little bit more with a series of Facebook Lives. But next Facebook Live, let me give you the time and date for that. The next Facebook Live that I'm going to do is next Thursday, probably around 4:30, looking at the time. So I'll let, look out in the group and on my page here, 4:30, and it's going to be called and all about Theos, the evolution of society. How did we get to where we are? It didn't predict the pandemic, it predicted something like it. It's going to explain exactly all the stages of evolution that society has gone through, how we've got to where we're at, and what's the most likely outcome that's coming next. So it's not a true prediction, it's like an extrapolation of what is some very likely outcomes, and most importantly, what we can do as individuals to assist us to all move through and forwards and towards this. So that's coming next Thursday. That's the 1st of April. Be no fool and be there, 4:30. And let me know what you think of this and share. Who do you know? Who are your observations of all of those leadership centers? I would love to know. Hope you found this useful. If you found this useful, share it, tag someone in it, and watch it later. I apologize for the little gap at the beginning. I don't know what happened there. Life, fun is what it is. We just played with it. Till next time, have a great one. Huge love to you. Bye for now.